This is Beyond the Culture. Let's go. I'm so excited that you took the time to join us on the next episode of Beyond the Culture. This is the show where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. I'm your host, Dr. David Walker. Today, I'd like to have a conversation about business. Yes, I know we're living in the middle of COVID-19, and COVID-19 has affected businesses across the country and even around the world. Some people have been adversely affected. Some businesses have been adversely affected. And then some have survived with a little bit of a struggle, but you are seeing your way through. But today I want to have a conversation about business, and I have someone on the show today where we're going to have that conversation. So today my guest is Donna Smith Bellinger. Donna is a businesswoman, and she is a revenue accelerator. I see somebody should have gotten excited about that right there. She is a revenue accelerator. She's a professional speaker, and she is an author specializing in working with those who feel they have hit the wall when it comes to personal and professional growth. So my guest today is Donna Smith Bellinger. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you so much, Dr. David. It's a pleasure to be here with you on your special platform.
Yes, yes. And I am super excited of having you on the show. We know each other very well, and I wanted you on to just to have a conversation about business. I know a lot of people, as I said, are struggling with the economy and what's going on with COVID-19, but there is a way out. And hopefully something that we hear today will help us in that particular area, especially if we are an entrepreneur and, our livelihood is about the business that we do. So I want to get right into the conversation, and let's start with you giving us your backstory, like, where you're from, where'd you grow up, and what was that experience like?
I grew up just outside of Chicago, one of the suburbs.
Okay.
So I guess maybe 25 miles west of Chicago. It's a suburb called Maywood, Illinois. And it was back in the day, for people who can remember these days, where you didn't lock your doors.
Okay.
Um, the kids would take off on their bikes first thing in the morning, and you just had to be home before the street lights came on. Maybe pop in and have lunch. Yes, I'm alive, and then take off again.
Uh-huh.
And it was kind of a um, upper middle class upbringing. I didn't see it as that, but later I learned that's actually what it was. I just figured this is how everybody was.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to public schools, private schools, um, traveled a little bit. When I was in high school, I spent a month in Europe, which
Wow.
was a lot of fun. Yeah, didn't get that. Not everybody gets to do that.
Right.
And so it was a very diverse upbringing. And I was exposed to a variety of cultures in my upbringing.
Very good. Very nice. Um, you know, Usually when I have a guest on, at some point in the conversation, I start, or at least the guests will start talking about what we call the rags to riches story. And but when I was doing my research for preparing for the show, I was on your website, and on your bio, I saw these words. It said that Donna is a proverbial rags to riches story. And so when I saw that, I said, listen, I can't wait any longer. I need to ask Donna about her rags to riches story. So if you can, just tell us, your story of how you may have overcome some trials and tribulations and challenges, and you became the person that you are today.
Okay, Dr. David, thank you. Now, I know some of your listeners are like, Okay, so she went to Europe and she went to private schools and she grew up in the burbs. I don't get this rags to riches thing.
There you go.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but here's what happened. In high school, I met that guy. You
Okay.
know, we have a tendency to think that we know everything in high school. And as a result, I became pregnant in my senior year and gave birth to a bouncing baby boy. And that was during the time when having a child while not married was a thing,
Mm.
you know. And when I told that story once to one of my mentees, she went, "Yeah, I heard that used to be a real issue back in the day." I
Wow.
was like, "Yes, dear, it was an issue back in the day." So
Uh-huh.
my family disowned me.
Mm.
They threw me out of the house with a 6 week old. I had $90, and they said, "No good man will ever want you, and you'll be working the streets in 6 months."
Mm.
So that was a complete pivot. I know it's an overused word right now, but that was what I call my first transition. So
Okay.
I went straight from high school kid to mom
Okay.
to breadwinner because, you know, of course, father long gone. So I was completely on my own, except for a couple of people, very few, who stayed in my corner and did what they could to assist.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, that was back in the day. So one of the things that I was determined was that my children would have at least what I had, and preferably more than what I had had.
Okay.
And that was my goal. And I started out as a lot of us do. I worked in a factory.
Okay.
That was one of my first gigs, and got very ill working in the factory. Moved forward, got an office gig thanks to EEOC. If you all think that didn't matter, trust me, it matters. And then I wound up going into a trade and technical school. I
Okay.
wanted to further my education, to further my opportunities, so that I could choose what I wanted to do as opposed to having to accept what was offered, because that just wasn't meeting my needs. So when I went into that particular school and I took the obligatory entrance exams and talked to their admissions people, they said, "We want you to be a programmer and you can take the programming class." And I said, "No, thank you. Already took programming. Don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted computer operations." Back and forth. And finally, my favorite go to for getting out of a conversation: "I am so sorry I wasted your time. I'll just take my financial aid and go away." I got a call that night from the director of admissions, and he said, "We'd love to have you take that program, but when you come in, I want you to work for me."
Okay.
And I said, "Really?" He says, "Yeah, because nobody ever tells me no." I was like, "Oh, if you're looking for somebody to do that, you got the right girl."
Uh-huh.
I graduated 8 months later as their assistant director of admissions. And I stayed in vocational education for over a decade. And then eventually I shifted over into corporate sales,
Okay.
largely in tech. And then fast forward a little bit further, I co-founded a tech firm.
Okay.
And then when I reached my middle earlies, I decided I wanted to go back into my roots of pure sales.
Okay.
Now, over the course of that, I made a few discoveries. First thing I realized is that I was a woman, and that made a difference.
Mm.
That had never made a difference before in my life. Second thing I realized is I was Black, and that was a thing. I
Wow.
didn't get it. I was
Uh-huh.
like, how is this a thing? You know,
Uh-huh.
but it was.
Okay.
And thirdly, and this is something that I just realized, this is so I've been in business for over 40 years. And you know, things just kind of appear to you sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that throughout my sales career, I have never led a female sales team. All of the sales teams that I led extremely successfully, award winning teams, were white male teams,
Okay.
which speaks to what I'm able to inspire in people and how I am able to lead. That's kind of the short story.
Okay.
I typically will say that there are three transitions. The first is from daughter to mother,
Okay.
and the next one is from mother to leader,
Okay.
okay, of sales teams. And then the third is when you find yourself in that stage of life where you assume control
Mm-hmm.
of everything around you. And someone asked me probably 10, 15 years ago now, if you could do anything and money was not an option, what would you do? And I said, all I want to do is travel and train.
Okay.
So I was living that life until COVID hit. And and I'm still training.
Sure.
I'm still training. And I work with exactly those people that you talk about. I work with people who only eat what they kill.
So before we go into, all that you do in terms of business, I just want to kind of stick with the story a little bit, about going from your rags to riches.
Hmm.
And, you talked about being a pregnant, a single mom.
Hmm.
And so how do you think you have helped other women with your story?
I know that I have helped other women with my story because even when I was in my 20s, I was working with I'm in Chicago, I
Hmm.
was working with the mayor's office on gang relations,
Okay.
and I was also working with the youth motivation program,
Okay.
and shared the stage with some absolutely phenomenal speakers. I took my daughter to one of those events when she was in junior high,
Hmm.
and I was speaking to this room of about 300 female gang members. And I told the story of being a single mom and the choices that had to be made and the compromises that you just can't make.
Hmm.
And when I got done with that, I got a standing ovation.
Wow.
Now, other speakers, there was an Olympian who was on the stage, and there were some other people on the stage, and they got the polite applause.
Hmm.
I got a standing O.
Wow.
Here's what was cute. My daughter, when I came back to the table, was looking at me like she was seeing me for the first time. And she said, these are hardcore girls, and they gave you a standing O. I said, yeah,
Uh-huh.
trying not to look moved by it. And she said, but all you did is tell them what you tell me every day. I said, well, the difference is they listened.
Oh, there you go.
And so now I love working with women
Okay.
who are afraid to have those revenue generating conversations, and who know that they have to shift their mindset and their self-imposed barriers, and, as I call it, unprogram themselves
Hmm.
from being that person who needs to be liked. I can't ask them to buy from me because maybe they won't like me. I'm
Right.
like, no, no, not playing that. And so I definitely share my story
Good.
frequently,
Okay.
and show them that they can do whatever it is that they would like to accomplish.
Absolutely. And, that story that you told, is very powerful. And, I know one could say it's primarily for women, but I'm sure it's a story that can encourage anyone because, as you say, we all have been in the valley at one point or another in our lives. And just to
Hmm.
hear that, you came up, it encourages all of us. But now, so I mentioned that you're a businesswoman and you started to talk about it, but I want you to just tell us about your business and what is it that you do?
Oh, thank you. Uh, I am, as you said, the business revenue accelerator. I deal with sales, and it's an interesting. I want to throw one more piece in my backstory.
Sure.
So I am not a doctor.
Okay.
Okay, I don't have that.
Uh,
For those of you who are feeling a little bit less than, I want you to know that I have an associate's degree, but I
mhm,
have 40 years in
mm,
sales. I've been recruited by colleges to be an adjunct and to speak and to do all of those things. So, uh, male, female, doesn't matter. When I
mhm,
tell my story, It's that your circumstances don't matter when you have the correct attitude
Right.
towards what you do.
Mm-hmm.
What I do now is teach what's not in the books.
Okay.
So when I'm working with, well, they're in the books, but I mean, you'd have to specialize. Pardon me. So I work with sales communications. I work with sales processes.
Okay.
My work is with people who are doing consultative sales in the areas of, say, legal, and financial services and real estate and mortgage people and then also entrepreneurs and emerging businesses for innovators.
Mm-hmm.
These are all people who are brilliant at what they do,
Mm-hmm.
but as I like to put it, they have difficulty communicating it to mere mortals. There's this tendency to communicate, to demonstrate your expertise as opposed to demonstrating the solution that you provide.
Mm-hmm.
And so I help them to repurpose their conversations
Okay.
to get people to yes, because the hardest thing for a very learned person, an expert, if you will, is to listen to the person who doesn't get what your expertise is
Mm-hmm.
and not talk over them and nail them with all of this wisdom, my degree in this, and I studied under so and so, and I did. And I'm going to tell you right now, your client doesn't care.
Right. Right.
They don't care. All
Yes.
right.
Uh-huh.
What they want is for you to fix whatever that challenge or pain is.
That's right.
That's what they're looking for. So when I'm working with my clients, I have a variety of topics that I speak on.
Okay.
Um, Sales for people who hate to sell
Mm-hmm.
is a favorite of mine. Also, I just got through delivering one. Sales is not about wait and see. Do you want to get paid now or eventually? Okay, and so that's kind of the way I deliver what I do. I work with corporations, with groups. I do lunch and learns, and I do private consulting.
Let me ask you this. Let me just go back because you said something, and I want to kind of emphasize. You said that you're not a doctor,
Mm-mm.
um, but I am, and
I know you are.
I know you know,
You have a wonderful story.
but let me tell you about credentials, and and I want to also emphasize the point that it doesn't matter all the accolades, all the education, as you said, if it doesn't solve anybody's pain points, then what is it? And
Hmm.
that's the job that everybody has to do. And I brought up being a doctor because yes, I've been to school and I have my education, but there are other ways to learn. There are other ways to
Absolutely.
be able to process information and share it. And here's the word. The word is experience.
Hmm.
When you can have the right experience but not have a degree. So I wanted to kind of put a stamp on that and underscore that because it is a lot of people get so caught up into I don't have the credentials, I don't have letters behind my name. Here's
Hmm.
one. I'm going to tell you that it's okay if you have the experience, you have the ability. If God has given you a specific gift to work with people to be able to solve their problems, then you go with what you have, and you can be successful.
Absolutely, because there's always someone who needs that.
That's right. That's
And
right.
and with what I do and the way I do it, when I got recruited to be an adjunct at one of the colleges here in Chicago, it was
Mm-hmm.
amazing because he said, I want to talk to you about joining our entrepreneurship and business program
Mm-hmm.
as an adjunct.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like Bill Cosby used to have in one of his routines. Who is this really? you know, what do no, this is a joke. And like, no, one of our people are leaving, one of our professors are leaving, and she recommended you. And I said, well, I don't have the alphabet soup.
Right. Right.
And he says, I have a building full of degrees, and they're
Mm.
not able to get the results that I'm looking for out of the students. And I was told you get results out of people.
There you go.
And I said, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting. They called me a few days before I went in for cancer surgery. And being the salesperson and the professional,
Mm-hmm.
he says, can you come in next week? Well, I knew I'd be recovering. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm booked all next week.
All
But
right.
I can fit you into my schedule on such and such a day if that works for you.
Uh-huh.
And truly, it took me longer to get there than I spent in the interview,
Wow.
because I was still on a cane and these other
Sure.
things were happening. But um, I tell that story. I tell, the rags to riches story because, as I said, with the right attitude, the circumstances do not matter.
Matter. Right.
It's just learning how to, what I say in my trainings, consistently communicate your competence.
Mm.
Show them how competent you are.
That's
Show them the results that you deliver. And
mm-hmm.
if you do that consistently, as I have seen in my life, you will encounter people who will see things in you that you don't see in yourself, and they will place you in the path of opportunities. So don't wear an S on your chest for struggle or for settle or any of
Mm.
those other things, because saying I can make a dollar holla is not a badge of honor.
Right, right,
Okay.
right.
It is surrender.
Mm.
You can create what you need to have
Mm.
if you're open and if you're willing. And if you don't keep it close to your vest, you keep putting it out there. The universe will make sure that you cross paths with the right opportunity. But if you continue to sit on the front porch with people who don't want to do anything better than what they're doing
Mm-hmm.
and don't want to see anyone else grow more than they already have, if you're afraid to get out of your zip code,
Mm.
then you're going to continue to get everything that you've already got. And remember, over time, water wears away rock. So what you have will shrink and you will have less and less.
Yes.
So you have to stand for whatever it is you hold dear. And for me, it was providing for my children
Mm-hmm.
and giving them opportunities, and to have them not pay for my mistakes.
Yes. What would you say? What are the best resources that have helped you along the way in your business?
I have been a lifelong learner, and I'll just admit that.
Okay.
I will sit in on any number of things. And now with COVID, you can take classes at Harvard for free. There
Yes.
are so many colleges that have things available to you now.
Mm-hmm.
You can expand your learning without the restrictions of finances, babysitters, transportation,
Mm-hmm.
all of those other things. And that is definitely uh, one of the things that they have an advantage over where you and I were.
Right.
Um, so step into the learning, step into workshops, connect with people who are already where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
However, I get approached a lot for people saying, would you be my mentor? So let me just tell you what this looks like. If you want someone who is successful to mentor you, the first thing they're going to ask you is, what have you already done?
Mm.
What have you already invested in? What have you already accomplished? Because if you're not willing to invest time into growing yourself, why should I?
Right.
Okay,
Absolutely.
because we know how much our time is worth, and we know how many people come to us. So before you start saying, I need a mentor, and I can't tell you how many times I hear that, I'm like, I'm sure you do, honey, but what have you done already?
Right.
That I
Right.
know that you're coachable and that you're going to work on this. I end the majority of my presentations with these words. Information acquired but not acted upon is just a souvenir.
Mm.
And then I kind of wink at them and go, and I don't sell t-shirts.
Wow.
You know, so I need you to commit to act on at least one of the points from this particular event or from this particular conversation. And if you're not willing to do that,
Mm-hmm.
we can't help. I mean, we can't.
And that part, you're so right. Some people want you to invest in them, but they don't want to spend the time investing in themselves.
Hmm. They
And
want the hand out instead of the hand up.
that's right. And I love it when you said, I will invest in you, but you have to show me that you're willing to put in the same amount of time, and so that's very important. Um, what's the one thing you wish you had known before you began your career, your business career?
The biggest gap was financial literacy.
Okay.
That was the biggest gap because I grew up in a time where women were not viewed as equals in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did not understand. I remember having a spirited discussion when I opened my first bank account and they bounced a check. And I said, but I still have checks left. And yeah, but you don't have the money to cover those checks. No, see, because my daddy wrote a check that I don't know how you all did it, but his checks were always good. And
Right.
so I didn't have that financial literacy. And I wasn't surrounded by people who were earning at my level. So 30, 35, 40 years ago, the first time I broke six figures,
Okay.
I literally had a nervous breakdown.
Mm.
I couldn't wrap my head around having that much money.
Okay.
And so did I invest it in property? No, it never occurred to me. I didn't know anybody who had bought property.
Mm-hmm.
Did I invest in stocks? No. What did I do? Oh, I loaned it out. I gave it away. I just, because I knew struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got broke again, I knew what to do to not be broke.
Right. Right.
But I didn't know how to manage the other thing.
Right.
Okay, so that was my biggest challenge. I think it wasn't managing sales teams. It wasn't working in a white male dominated space, although it was challenging. But the thing that held me back the most
Mm-hmm.
was my lack of financial literacy.
And that is the thing that holds most people back, because people have said, and I know you've heard it, if I could just get some money, if I hit it big and win big, I'm going to do this, that. No, if you don't have financial literacy, no matter how much money you get, sooner or later, you're going to be broke again because you haven't learned how to take care of it and manage it. Am I right about that?
You're absolutely right. You have to learn how to protect it, nurture it, and grow it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a farmer with a field. And if you don't understand that whole cycle,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because there is a cycle to it, then not only will you not have it, but you won't have what we need most, which is generational wealth.
Okay.
And I had never heard of the term generational wealth.
Yes, I love that.
Okay, and so that is just so very important as well. So if you all want to go out and study something, just go on and Google the words generational wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And if that doesn't make you want to get up and do something.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, people who are familiar with what it says in the Bible, in the scripture, a good man, a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to think that down the line, several generations, because that's what generational wealth is all about. So you are an author. You have written several books. I'm going to mention a couple of them, and then you could talk about either one, or you could talk about both. One is You Lost Me at Hello, Actionable Principles That Move You Beyond Networking. And the other is Creating the Eighth Day and the 25th Hour. If you want to talk about both, you can, or you can pick one and talk about it.
Actually, I'm going to go to the first one, the second one, which is You Lost Me at Hello.
Okay.
Actionable Principles That Move You Beyond Networking. That book got me mentioned in Essence Magazine,
Okay.
got me some TV slots. And it's amazing because I'm not a writer. My husband is the author in the family. I am
Okay.
not a writer. I'm a speaker. So
Okay.
I had to dictate this book and trust others to edit it and put it in the correct format and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote that book because I was tired of answering the same questions.
Oh.
And that's it, basically what it was. People would say to me, Donna, you walk into a room and people come over to you immediately because they think you know everybody in there. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, and probably I don't know a soul, you know. But I am a master networker.
Okay.
And I'm also a truth teller. So the first chapter in that book is not everyone is going to like you.
Okay.
And you really don't want them to because it's too time consuming. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's the truth. You cannot give 100%. You cannot give your best to everybody.
Yes.
And we spend far too much time attempting to be a pale imitation of someone else's idea of success.
Right.
The original is always more clear, sharp, and valuable than the copy.
Yes. Yes.
And regardless to where you stand and what you do, there are billions of people on this planet. There's a handful of people who think and are looking for exactly what you're bringing.
Mm-hmm.
Your job, your duty is to find and serve them. Or, as someone you and I both know, we have to find our assignment,
There you go.
right? We just have
Yes.
to find our assignment. So, in that book, it's very important for people to understand that it's a simple, short book that is very situational. I
Mm-hmm.
talk about what do you do when you walk in a room, you don't know anybody and nobody's talking to you. No,
Mm.
you don't stand off in the corner and wait to be discovered. Life isn't like that. So these are steps you can take to get into it. They're very simple, a little bit sneaky, very powerful. So if you are trying to break into business, if you're a college student and you're just learning how to network, and even now when everybody is getting what I call Zoom butt,
Mm-hmm.
because it's equally as important now that you know how to consistently communicate your competence, that you know, understand, or are able to communicate your value
Mm-hmm.
so that other people can see that. And also that you remember that first impressions, the way you show up, like you and I do when we're doing a Zoom, we know that everybody's on the front row.
Right.
So
Right.
if you slouch in your chair,
Mm-hmm.
if that's the energy you're giving, if you're leaning back on a pile of pillows, you need to give the same energy and attention to every one of those Brady Bunch windows on that screen as
Yes.
you want those people to give to you. And if nobody is doing it but you, guess who they'll remember?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that is a very cool book. My next book is coming out in November, the end of November, and it's for sales, and it's just called Only Yes is Yes.
Wow. That's awesome. Um, Let me say this because somebody said this to me the other day. Um, when you become an author like you are, you do add three letters to the end of that, ITY. That means you become an authority.
Okay. All right. I
So
was
you
thinking when you said three letters, I was like SME.
so you got your three letters, you're an authority.
I am an authority. Okay. And I kind of like that.
Sure,
I'll take
sure.
that.
There
I
you
will
go.
take that.
Welcome. You're welcome to it.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, is there anything, speaking of books, is there anything that you may have read or listened to recently that inspired you?
I am a fan of a number of people. I love Brene Brown.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
really get off on her. And the reason I do is because of the energy
Okay.
and the breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, here's the obstacle, here's how you break through. Here's the obstacle, here's where you shift your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe our strength does come from within, and it's between our two ears.
Right.
That's where it is. When you can break through the mindset and the negative self-talk, that
Okay.
helps. Then in business, I have a friend who has wonderful, wonderful business books. Her name is Deborah Gray Young. And Deborah Gray Young has been on the cover of Black Enterprise many times.
Okay.
She is an expert and a veteran in marketing. And she specializes in working with women in corporate and dealing in leadership
Okay.
for them. So I would say that those are two women that I follow. I keep an eye on some of the guys, but if I'm going to promote, then I would promote two women.
Sure. Sure. I understand.
One looks like me and the other one doesn't.
As we begin to draw this outstanding conversation to a close, and I'm just so grateful to you being on with us
Thank
today.
you for having me.
it- it- Sometimes I get absent-minded. So is there anything that I should have asked you, but I didn't?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
So if your listeners are interested in talking to me,
Mm-hmm.
they can visit my website. I have two.
Okay.
So first of all, you can find me on LinkedIn, Donna Smith Bellinger on LinkedIn.
Right.
Uh, DonnaSmithBellinger.com is my primary website.
Okay.
And then I have another website where I throw my free stuff. And that one is called Ask DSB. It's the
Yes.
same as my hashtag. So ASKDSB. And feel free to peek in those areas.
Okay.
And I have some Donna free there for you. So those people who are looking for somebody to give, I give on that Ask DSB site. And it's a privilege to connect with any of your listeners. Uh, it'd be a pleasure.
Can you close us out with an inspirational message, something that you can leave with this audience that would inspire us and lift us up?
I'll share with you one of my favorite quotes.
Okay.
One of my favorite quotes is from Eleanor Roosevelt. Woman's been gone for generations and she's still brilliant. And Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Do not allow anyone to tell you no who
Mm.
does not have the authority to tell you yes."
Wow.
And I hang on to that every single day.
Outstanding. Yes, yes, yes. And that's something that we all can take with us. If the person doesn't have the authority to tell you yes, don't even pay attention to their no.
No, who are they?
Wow. Donna, I am just so overjoyed that you took the time to stop by our show, Beyond the Culture, to inspire us, to lift us up, to tell us about your story, your personal story, and also the impact that you're having in business. And as I say to all my guests when they come on the show, you have gone beyond the culture. And Donna, I want to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Dr. David. It is indeed a blessing to be here today. I appreciate it.
All right, and you take care.
Thank you, sir.
Now, if you want to continue to hear inspiring interviews like the one you heard today, I want you to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. Also, rate the show and please leave a comment. I would also love it if you would share this podcast with your friends to let them know that we're on. Finally, please go to our website at www.beyondtheculturepodcast.com, or you can email me at beyondtheculturepodcast@gmail.com. On the website, you can subscribe to the show and connect with me by leaving your email address. I'd love to hear from you. This is your host, Dr. David Walker, and we'll talk again on Beyond the Culture. Take care.